Calyx Boxing here. Hit that sub button, hit the alerts, hit the like button, all that good stuff, man. As we come on here, Stevenson versus Nakathila. We're in round 8. What are we in now? Round 9. As Joe Tessitore just answered my question. Round 9. Stevenson's still not stepping it up. Frustrating to watch so far, man. Stevenson, we already know what we're getting with Stevenson. High technical ability, great defense. What I was hoping to happen tonight with Stevenson is him step up his game and finish a guy who is ready to be finished. And Nakathila is in there ready to be finished. Nakathila has been in survival mode. He's just going to throw one punch, stand right in front of him. He's just in there to go 12 and lose 12 rounds to 0, basically, and just hope to land one big punch. And we all know, I did it a couple of days ago. I said it a couple of days ago in the fight breakdown is this guy's right hand dominant. He can punch with the right hand, can bang with the right hand, but that's all he's got. He's going to throw one or two punches at a time. He's going to have trouble setting up those punches, being that he's never been in there with superior opposition. He's pretty flat-footed. He's going to have trouble with the southpaw, who is right-hand dominant in Shakur Stevenson. So he's going to have issues. So this guy is standing right in front of Stevenson, ready to be finished. And Stevenson is still showing, and the referee, for whatever reason, just keeps talking about the feet. Dude, it's southpaw versus orthodox. You're going to have feet issues. Get out of the way. But when you have a guy right in front of you ready to be finished, man, he's showing so much respect for Nakathila's right hand when, yes, it's a weapon, but dude, he can't set it up. He can't set it up against you. Step on the gas. Step on the gas. And I've heard Timothy Bradley and Andre Ward over and over tonight say it's about hitting, not getting hit and all this stuff. Dude, it's also about hurting people. It's also about bruising people. This is also the hurt business. Step on the gas. One thing I'll say about Stevenson that I noticed different tonight is he looks bigger. He looks bigger, and he looked drained at the weigh-in, but he looks bigger tonight. So he's definitely doing something different with the training. Because traps look bigger, biceps look bigger, legs look bigger, which worried me a little bit because usually you don't want your legs looking bigger if you're a fighter. But he looks bigger, man, and he still kept his speed, as you can see. So that's a good thing for Stevenson. Looks good and healthy at 130 as far as physique, as far as weight. He fits in nicely at the top, but this performance, man, this is the type of performance like at this point in the fight where you start to hear the boos start to creep in with the crowd because they're smart enough to know that this guy could get the opposition out of there right now. Stevenson could get this guy out of there right now. I don't know if I'm lagging behind y'all as far as watching the fight, but I'm between rounds 9 and 10. The over-under for this fight was 8.5. And Vegas had the odds higher for the under. So that means Vegas was expecting Stevenson to finish this fight within 8.5 rounds. So this fight should have been over. Should have been over. I was watching the fight in the bedroom. I told my wife, it's going to be over in like 30 minutes. Don't worry about it. Even though I picked in my official prediction Nakathila to go 12 and to lose a wide scorecards. But I was hoping as the fight neared that Stevenson was going to give us a great performance, step on the gas a little bit, sit on some punches a little more. But the only impactful punches he's really landed tonight, a check hook. He landed the check hook, which basically just caught Nakathila off balance. But it kind of worries me that he hasn't hurt this guy. And we know about African fighters. They're tough to hurt. They have good stamina. They don't cut easy. So you can't make too much off of this. But Stevenson's lack of power and lack of aggressiveness in this fight is starting to worry me. When you talk about other fighters at 130, Valdez is a beast, man. Valdez is a dog at 130. That guy can punch. That guy can box. Has lateral movement. It's all there for Valdez. Even a guy like Burchelt coming off a loss to Valdez. Burchelt can bang, right? So Burchelt can bang. He's still in the mix at the top of 130, and then you got Jamal Herring. But I would favor Stevenson against Jamal Herring. Obviously, I think Herring is a level lower than Valdez, Stevenson, Burchelt. But Stevenson fits in well at the top of 130. Fits in well. Physique looks good. He's kept his power. I mean, he's kept his speed and his technical boxing ability with the added weight that he's put on. But as soon as the fight started, I said, man, Stevenson looks big. Stevenson's been working. He's been in the gym, man. He's been working out. So I don't know if he's in a different strength and conditioning program, different trainer. I'm not sure what's going on, but this is frustrating to watch, man. We're in round 10. He's just not stepping on it. And Nakathila, man, one punch. He paws out the jab. More of a defense mechanism. Stand right in front of him. Their feet are right. So Nakathila right there, he just tried to step on the outside of Stevenson's feet, and then Stevenson steps right to the side and negates that. So the defense is there for Stevenson, but step on it, man. You got a guy in there with you who you can get out of there. You're starting to see the boos creep in. Come on, man. Step on it, Stevenson. Hit that like button as y'all come in, man. If y'all are in there, hit the comment. Let me know who y'all are. Let me know what y'all think about this performance so far, if you're watching. Because frustrating so far for me watching this and expecting more or hoping for more from Stevenson. If you didn't catch the prediction video, I had Stevenson beating Nakathila by a wide decision, which it looks like he's in cruise mode right now, which is frustrating. When you get a guy in front of you like Nakathila is right now, who is just kind of pawing out the jab every once in a while, and then every once in a while he throws a straight right, looking to land it, and Stevenson just circles away from it easily because Nakathila throws punches that are easy to telegraph. They're easy to see. You should be able to counter that. You should be able to counter that at least. If you don't want to lead with aggressive combination punches and get this guy out of there and put on a show, at least throw some tougher check hooks. The check hook that he threw, I think that was round 3 or 4, where he got the 10-8 round. He landed that check hook, but that was more of catching Nakathila off balance. I haven't seen I don't agree with Timothy Bradley that this guy's been hurt. I haven't seen Nakathila hurt at all in this fight. Not once. So step on. I see Jamal Herring's there. So Jamal Herring is begging for one of these guys at the top of 130 to fight him. He has a belt. Likable guy. And he's a guy who's beatable at the top of 130 if you're talking about guys like Stevenson, Valdez, who are special talents, who are who have a lot going for them and are younger fighters than Jamal Herring. That should be a belt that these guys are ready to pick off. But it seems like Valdez is going for other things. Stevens is going for other things. But you see Nakathila lands a body punch right. And that's what I'm saying, man. Like, Nakathila threw a body punch with the right hand right there. And that should have easily been countered with the left hand. Easily. And Stevenson is so worried about that right hand that he's just in cruise mode right now. He just doesn't want to get hit with that right hand. And the right hand hasn't even landed. But they did the same homework that I did and a lot of YouTubers did when we went back and watched footage of Nakathila leading up to this fight. Is right hand dominant, and he can bang with the right hand if he catches you flush. The issue is against a guy like Stevenson, against elite opposition, he's not going to catch you flush because he doesn't know how to set up that punch. He's too flat-footed. It's too telegraphic. And he just, look right there. He's so off balance throwing that right hand because Stevenson's not there. Stevenson's already gone by the time he pulls the trigger on that right hand because he sees it coming from a mile away. Shout out J.O. Smitty. If y'all are in there, man, hit me up with a comment. Hit that like button as you come in. Please hit the like button as you come in. And hit me with a comment if y'all watching this fight, man. Let me know what y'all think about Stevenson. Maybe I'm being too critical. Maybe there are a lot of people out there like Andre Ward and Timothy Bradley who are saying it's about hit and not get hit. Look, man, it's also about hurting people. You have to step on the gas when you have a guy like this, put on a good performance. But maybe Stevenson's in that mode that, I'm just going to get through this. I'm not going to risk getting cut. I'm not going to risk breaking my hand. I'm not going to risk doing any of that. Let me cruise to a 12th round decision and move on to bigger and better things. Maybe he's in that mode right now. But if you're going to earn more fans, if you're going to try to earn more marketability, et cetera, you got to put on performance and finish the job when it's right there in front of you. Maybe he doesn't think he can hurt Nakathila. I don't know. Maybe he's just showing too much respect for that right hand. I think it's that. But either way, it's frustrating. Either way, it's very frustrating because he's just in cruise mode, right? This is a sparring session. We don't want to see this. It's a sparring session. Am I being too critical of Shakur? Shakur steps up on competition and get his ass whooped. I don't know. I don't know about that. We'll find out because it's coming soon. But I think he fits in nicely at the top of 130. But if he fights like this, man, he's putting me to sleep right now. Y'all think my Stevenson gives my... I'd take Valdez all day over Stevenson. Especially after watching the Burchell fight. Stevenson putting on this performance. Look, man, great technical performance, great defensive performance. You're showing your hand speed. But he's not answering any other questions. Like we knew this about Stevenson coming in. We wanted to know, like, can he mix it up a little bit? Will he step on the gas if he has a guy in front of him who is flat-footed? He hasn't done that. If he gets caught with the right hand, will his chin hold up? He hasn't had to answer that question because he's been so tentative. Fernando Cruz agrees. Look, Valdez is a beast, man. Valdez would have had this guy out of here. He'll step on it. He's aggressive. He's in there to hurt guys. You saw that with Burchell. That's a perfect example right there. Valdez could have played it more tentative with Burchell as the fight went on. And finally, Nakathila lands a right hand. And then Shakur Stevenson clinches. Valdez could have played it safer as the fight went on with Burchell. You have a guy, you talk about a guy who can bang. Burchell is a guy who can bang. That's a slip right there. About the 10th slip of the night. About the 10th time the referee has warned him about their feet. But Valdez went in there for the kill. That was the difference. And he used Burchell's aggressiveness against him. Now, Nakathila is not as aggressive as Burchell was, obviously, but Nakathila is leaning in and reaching with that right hand. And look, right, he did it again. He threw that straight right, and he leans in with the right. He just threw a right hook and leaned in, and it's right there for a counterpuncher. I think that's the biggest he landed a counter right there with the left uppercut, but I think that's the thing I'm most disappointed in with Stevenson tonight is the lack of power counterpunching that he showed tonight. Yes, he landed the check hook on the slip. It wasn't a slip. It was sort of a flash knockdown. But he's not countering with power. And he's not taking any risk. Out right there, Nakathila threw a big right hand, and then Stevenson just circled out. He just stepped out instead of trying to land a big counterpunch that's right there. It's right there all night and finish the show. Instead of that, man, I'm not happy with this performance at all, man. Stevens is probably hiding glass. Is Stevenson hiding glass? Does he have a chin to hold up against power? Is that the game plan to just play it safe, get to bigger fights? I don't know, man. I'm just not happy with this performance. Not at all. Um, Shout out to Tom GT4. Haven't seen you in a while, man. Good to see you. Line them up. Shakur will take them out. Newark, Eli Harris. And look, man, we've seen fighters in the past who have put on lackluster performances, have put people to sleep, haven't stepped on the gas and finished the show. Put on forgettable performance as Shakur is doing tonight. I mean, just a lackluster performance for Shakur Stevenson, and have still gone on to do great things. Right. So, I mean, this could just be a bump in the road for Shakur. He won. He did what he had to do. Right. But you just expect more. If Shakur Stevenson is a special fighter, you just expect more. Right. But we've seen guys who are special have lackluster performances in the past and still go on to do great things. So we don't want to read too much into this. I'm just disappointed in this fight. I'm just disappointed in this performance for Shakur Stevenson. I want to hear what he says in the post fight. We know what the scores should read, right? And I'm probably behind y'all. So if y'all see the scores before me, y'all let me know what they are. And then I want to hear what he says. I want to hear who he calls out. I'm pretty sure he's going to call out Oscar Valdez. Jamal Herring is there. So this picture at 130 needs to start clearing up. And Oscar Valdez did a great job of starting that off by completely knocking out Burchelt in that last fight. Still think he gives Valdez a ton of can't deny his skill set. That's right. I'd take Valdez in that fight. I think Valdez is the cream of the crop, the best at 130. But Shakur Stevenson does have some things that could give Valdez some issues possibly in that fight. You cannot deny his skill set. We can talk about his lack of power. We can talk about his lack of aggressiveness, his lack of killer instinct, all that stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But we cannot deny the skill set of Shakur Stevenson. It's there. It passes the eye test anyway, because he hasn't had that big step up test yet. But looks like the skill set is there anyway. He's skilled, no lie, but Valdez is a killer. That's the difference. Valdez is a killer. And it looks up to this point that Shakur Stevenson is not. I just seen with Stevenson something about his energy that makes me think he is manufactured. We'll find out. As time goes on. Valdez can't beat Shakur. I don't know about that, man. Let me see these scorecards real quick. 120, 107. Of course. So we knew that was going to be the wide decision, and the prediction held up. So Stevenson officially gets the wide decision. He doesn't look all that happy to me, but he moves on. You call him Shakur the Chicken. Renee Moreno in the building. Everybody's going to have their opinions. The future of Sky. I think Valdez Stevenson is 50-50. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the betting odds would be for that. That seems about right, though. 50-50 fight. He's a runner. He's a track star. Shakur. Is Shakur a track star? It's over, man. It's over. So the official scorecards, I think they all read 120, 107. I don't think anybody gave Nakathila around nor should they have. Completely outskilled. But Tim Bradley said he had a tough time staying awake. I agree, man. I had to hop on here because if I would have just been watching TV without doing a live, I would have fell asleep. I would have turned the TV. I would have turned the had I not come on here live, I would have turned the fight off in about round 4. Because this is one of those fights, by the second round, you pretty much saw where it was going, right? Like, Stevenson was going to outclass this guy. So when you got to round 4, 5, and he wasn't stepping on the gas, man, it's just frustrating to watch. They're going to do one of these weird interviews where Shakur just dapped up the guy who was going to interview him, shook his hand, hugged him, and then he stands 6 feet away to give the interview. Clown world. just ended. It finished. Shout out Fernando Cruz. Shout out Rene Moreno. He won, but in sucky fashion. That's perfectly put right there. He won, but it's a forgettable fight. Let me see, man. I think they're about to switch. Yeah, they're about to switch. I want to see. I wanted to see the interview, but it looks like they're switching over. Let me see if they got it on ESPN2. Possibly, or they got baseball on there or something. Who won? Shakur Stevenson by wide decision. He won every round. Shakur won 120-107 on all scorecards, I believe is what I heard. So you read that and you're like, oh, Shakur put on a splendid performance. And hit that like button as you come in. Hit the sub button if you're not subbed, man, for fresh boxing videos every day. Fair boxing content, man. I'm going to call it how I see it. It's not always going to be pleasing to you if you're a fan of a certain fighter. But I'm just a fan of the sport for all of you who are new here. So I'm a fan of the sport, and I'm going to call it like I see it. I'm not going to call it for a certain fighter over another one just because I like that fighter or because I was able to interview that fighter. I have to call it for that fighter all the time to continue to get interviews for that fighter. No, man, I'm just a boxing fan here to give fresh boxing content every day. So hit that sub button, hit the alert so you know when I'm live, and please hit the like button as you come in. If he steps up in competition, he will get beat. That's a fair unanimous. Yeah, unanimous. Wide. Nakathila didn't do anything in this fight. Win all 12. Teofimo or Tank. I got Teofimo in that fight. If they fight, I got Teofimo all day. But Tank's a beast too. I just don't like seeing Tank continue to go for these baby belts, man. He's avoiding the guys at 135 to go for a guy at 140 who has a baby belt. Taylor has all the belts that matter in his trophy case at 140. So Tank's fighting Mario Barrios for a belt gone wild. All right, he's fighting him for a thought belt. He's fighting him for a belt that does not matter, a trinket. So I'd have rather seen Tank Davis stay at 135 and fight those Sharks at 135 and mix it up. I want to see these guys at 135 mix it up, man. Mix it up. Stop avoiding each other. So you know what's going to happen at 135, though, right? You saw today Teofimo signed a long-term contract, a 2-year contract with Top Rank. And good for Teofimo. Teofimo made a bet on himself. He's like, I'm going to go over to Triller for this fight, get paid, and then bring Top Rank back to the table for more money. And that's exactly what happened. Top Rank threw more money at him for a 2-year deal, gave him a better minimum per fight, and they're giving him a pay-per-view October 2nd on ESPN. So Teofimo is going to be fighting on a pay-per-view. So you ask yourself, who is Teofimo going to fight on the pay-per-view? And this is all pending that he beats Kambosos, right? So if he gets past Kambosos, you say, who is he going to fight October 2nd in a pay-per-view? We all know the answer, right? We should know the answer, right? Who fights the week after him? Look, Bob Arum may be 94. We may not like him, et cetera, but he's a smart guy. He's a cunning guy. Who fights a week after Teofimo? So what happens? Teofimo beats Kambosos on the 19th. A guy named Vasily Lomachenko fights on the 26th. If he wins, takes care of the Japanese cat, who is a beast himself. But if Lomachenko gets past him, guess what we got? We got the rematch between, like it or not, we got the rematch between Teofimo Lopez and Lomachenko on ESPN on October 2nd. I'm telling you that's what's going to happen. I'm telling you that's what he's lining up. You can book it. You might as well book it now. October 2nd, if those two guys, big if they get past their fights this month, you're going to have Teofimo versus Lomachenko 2, the rematch on October 2nd. On ESPN in Vegas. I'm telling you that's what's going to happen. Get the likes up, support the channel. I appreciate that, man. Eli Harris. Even if we agree, man, shout out my boy Haplotype, Joe Calzaghe's number one fan. 2 punchers going 12 isn't a good look, though. That's right. That's what I'm saying, man. But Stevenson had a guy, going back to this fight, had a guy in front of him who was ready, man. Like he was just there for a payday. He was looking, he was hoping that he could land a straight right. Nakathila was hoping he could land a straight right. But if not, by the time it was round 4, round 5, round 6, we saw that Nakathila wasn't going to be able to set up that punch, his money punch, right? He can bang with it, but you got to set it up against an elite fighter, and it was evident that he wasn't going to be able to do that. So at that point, Stevenson should have either stepped on the gas and led with more punches, threw more combinations, or sat on those counters. But instead of sitting on the counters, he showed too much respect for Nakathila's right hand and would just circle out or would just stay out of range instead of standing in the pocket and landing that big counter that was there all night for him. Let me get to some of these comments. I just have Valdez I just want to get Valdez to KO him. Sergeant, Downranger 69, Shakur won, but he needed to step it up. Exactly. He only did what he needed to do to win. Yep. Paul Jimenez, J.O. Smith, new sub. You sound unbiased. Yep. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate the sub. If you're new here, sub, man. Fair boxing content here. And hit that like button as you come in. Valdez is going to lose. LaShawn McCall. I don't know, man. Valdez looks tough. You see how you see it except for Froch. He's hating on Froch still. Shakur can't even knock a random bum out. JR, Junior Bana. And this is what I like, man. I like the comments. Everybody's always all over the place on fight night. And that's why I like doing these because, look, man, it's fair. Fair is fair, man, in the boxing world. Fair is fair. You call it how you see it. Let that guy call out. Let's argue. Let's debate it. Shakur Stevenson is overrated, says Arturo Vargas. He said it again. Tank endurance is not there. Tank Davis, we'll see. Maybe Mario Barrios, that's his game plan, is to take Tank into the later rounds and hopefully stand up to those big shots because Tank can bang, man. Tank lands those punches, those sharp punches that you don't see coming. So that, to me, can translate to 140. He has the type of power that can translate to 140, in my opinion, because he's going to fight bigger, more plotting guys who are going to walk into his punches. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tank stops Barrios. Mario Barrios. Wouldn't be surprised at all. But that's not the fight I want to see. I wanted to see Tank mix it up with the guys at 135. I wanted to see Tank versus Teofimo. I want to see Tank versus Ryan Garcia. I want to see Tank versus Devin Haney, etc., etc. Mix it up with those guys instead of going north to fight Mario Barrios. Nobody was calling for Tank versus Barrios. I don't know a person alive that was calling for Tank versus Barrios at 140. And that's why I call him a baby belt killer, because he's going up there to get a belt, a trinket that doesn't matter, except he can call himself a 3-division champion or whatever he's going to call himself. But Shakur is a secure boxer and a real skill, but I wonder if he had power. Hugo Ramirez is exactly. We wanted questions answered. We want to know if Shakur has killer instinct, if Shakur has power, if he can sit on punches, if he has power with his counter punches. He didn't answer any of that tonight. We don't know about his chin yet because he didn't get hit with anything tonight, because every time Nakathila would throw a right hand, you saw it from a mile away, and Stevenson would just get out of there. He was just showing a lot of respect for that. But real quick to wrap it up on Tank, I think the fight they're trying to angle in on 140 is Tank Davis versus Adrien Broner. There's a reason Adrien Broner's sticking around at 140, even though he can't make that weight anymore. They're trying to get Tank Davis this belt, and then they're going to sell us on a Tank Davis versus Adrien Broner pay-per-view at 140 for a belt, for a title. I'm telling you, that's what they're doing. They're keeping Adrien Broner at 140 for a reason. Have we heard any? What's Adrien Broner out there doing right now? I mean, there are guys at 140. Prograis is out there. Ramirez would fight him right now, even coming off of a loss. But Broner's sticking around. He says, I want to campaign at 140. And the reason they're doing that, I'm telling you, is they're giving Tank Davis this belt at 140, and then they're going to do a pay-per-view after that, Tank Davis versus Broner. Watch. I'm calling it. But, yeah, look, Shakur, we already know the skill set. We already know the skill set of Shakur. It's off the charts, man. It's a great technical fighter. All that stuff, yada, yada. Great defensive fighter. But I was just hoping to see more tonight. It was just lackluster for me. I was hoping to see more. I was hoping to see like what Valdez did against Burchell. Valdez could have been in cruise mode as that fight, as he was racking up round after round after round. But instead of doing that, he was sitting on punches and trying to get Burchell out of there. And Burchell is a bad dude. Burchell can bang. Burchell can end the fight with any punch. But Valdez stuck his neck out there and said, you know what? I'm getting this guy out of there. I'm going to put on a performance. I'm going to try to make myself a star tonight. He made a statement. And that's what I was hoping to see Stevenson do tonight against subpar. I mean, I even overrated Nakathila coming into this fight. After watching this fight, Nakathila is worse than I thought. I thought he was like a C-level fighter. He's probably a D-level fighter. No offense, Shakur, Steve, again, Arturo Vargas. Valdez would nick out Shakur. Possibly. We don't know anything about the chin yet. Shout out to everybody here. That's facts. Shakur is not overrated at all, but tonight was BS. Look, that's a level-headed comment right there. Maybe he's not overrated, but he just put on a performance that's forgettable tonight. And like I said, man, sometimes fighters do that. Even great fighters who go on to do great things, special fighters going to do special things, they have these performances earlier on in their career that you're like, is this real guy really what they're building him up to be? And they have this forgettable, lackluster performance, but then they go on to do great things. So let's be forgiving. But man, I know so many people who I was texting with early on in the fight, and then I would text them like fourth round, and then they stopped texting back, so I think they just fell asleep. And then we got Arturo Vargas again. Shakur Stevens is over. I think it's the fourth time he said it. Shakur needs to move to 135. Look, LaShawn McCall. I said it when I first saw Stevenson in the ring. He looked big tonight. Like he looked like he's on a different strength and conditioning program. Look big, traps look big, forearms look big, biceps, legs even look big. So Shakur looks like he's coming into his body. Looks strong at 130. So I would tell him to stay at 130, especially with the lack of punching power at 130. It's even going to be even more so at 35. So I think he needs to stay at 30, man. Look, there's some killers at 130. There's some guys to fight. Valdez is there. Herring is there. And you still got Burchell up there, even coming off of a loss. Who can bang? So there's guys at 130. I think he needs to stay there. I don't like the news that Teofimo seems to me like Bob convinced Teo not to make the Haney fight. Teofimo is about that money right now, so he got a nice payday for this fight. I don't think the pay-per-view is going to do well. I've been saying that for a while. There's just no buzz for this Teofimo Kambosos fight. It's not a pay-per-view level fight, caliber fight. So I don't think it's going to do well. I think he used this as leverage to get Top Rank back. He was not happy with what Top Rank was offering in this fight. Top Rank came in third. When they were bidding on this fight, coming up with Kambosos, he felt disrespected. He went with Triller. They won the bid. And Top Rank came back to the table and said, we'll give you what you want. We'll give you more money. They came together, and Teofimo belongs with Top Rank right now. He just does. I think they could do the best job with him. And I just think that fight with Lomachenko is the one that Bob wants to make. Bob wants to keep the money in-house. They want to give Lomachenko another shot at this. And it's a win-win for Bob because if let's say Teofimo wins again, the train keeps rolling for Teofimo. I think he would possibly move up to 140 at that point or stay at 135. for one more fight, but I think the Devin Haney fight's going to happen at 140 when it does, because I think both of those guys are busting at the seams at 135. So that fight's going to happen at 140 when it does. I think that's a 2022 fight with Devin Haney, late 2022. But that's the fight that Bob wants to make, man. He wants to make Teofimo versus Lomachenko, and if Lomachenko upsets Teofimo in the rematch, even better for Bob, because guess what? We get Lomachenko again. Nonstop marketing with Lomachenko. Bob gets his man back on top, and then he can push a trilogy and more money for Bob. So I'm telling you, man, it's the fight they want to make October 2nd. And good for Teofimo for getting that money and getting a pay-per-view on October 2nd, man. Good for him. Good for Teofimo using that leverage. He'll fight Nakathila. Yep. Downranger. And shout out to El Selector. Shakur needed to take a risk and get the dude out, but he looked like he was afraid to get hit. That's what I'm worried about too, man. He showed so much respect for a right hand that was so telegraphic. You saw it coming from a mile away. What's he going to do? How gun-shy is he going to be in there against a guy like Valdez who can punch? Or if he fights a Burchelt who can punch? I think Shakur handles Jamal Herring very well. I think he handles Jamal Herring easily. I think he'll just outbox him. It won't be as wide as what you saw tonight, obviously, because Herring is a crafty vet, and he's a guy who's hungry. He's not going to just go out there and stand in front of Stevenson like Nakathila did tonight. But he is a guy that Stevenson should outclass. I could see that fight going 116, 112, 117, 111, something like that for Stevenson, and he gets himself a belt. Let's see what else we got. Valdez is a skilled beast with elite power with Eddie and Canelo. Shakur is easy work by KO. That's another take, man. And we got Arturo Vargas again for the 5th time. Shakur Stevenson is overrated. Ignacio Mendoza, Shakur needs to immediately move away from Top Rank. Whipping any cop is a plus. Shakur Stevenson. And I swear I'm not hitting the same comment over and over, man. I swear I'm not doing it. He just keeps saying it. Let me try to find where I was with the comments, man. Let's see what we got. Shout out my boy, D-Style Boxing. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. D-Style Boxing. Go and check out D-Style Boxing. Hit the sub button and hit the alerts for him because I'm on his channel all the time. Hispanics Causing Panic Tuesday night. We got Uncensored on Wednesday night on G Funky's channel. So follow G Funky as well. G Funky Boxing. I think he just goes by G Funky. I call him G Funky Boxing on Wednesday nights. And then Thursday nights, we got the roundtable that I was just on D-Style Boxing's channel. So after this, man, write it down right now. D-Style Boxing, D-Style Boxing, D-Style Boxing, sub to that channel. If you sub to me, sub to him. Believe me, you're not going to be disappointed. And we have a fresh new show coming Monday night. I haven't named it yet, but it's coming Monday night, 8 Central, me and D-Style Boxing. So he's going to be on the channel with me, man. I always appreciate D-Style Boxing. I've been in here with him for, 10 years? We're 10 years strong now, D-Style. So it's all love, man. Let me try to find where I was with the comments, man. I'm way back, way behind. Andre Ward and Bradley even said if Shakur threw more, yeah. Even they said, and they're the kings of hit and don't get hit. They kept saying it all night. And, dude, it's not just hit and not get hit. This is the hurt game. You want to bruise guys. But even they were like, man, he needs to step on it. Timothy Bradley said after the fight, I almost fell asleep. Let's see what we got. Shakur just boxed 12 rounds of Olympic-style boxing. That's right. That was amateur style right there. I want to see Shakur fight someone as a big name in his peak. Tank would kill Garcia. Shout out to Vada Media. What else we got? Tank's also good at slipping and countering. Lopez smokes these fools. Tank got it all. People sleep on his boxing skills because he's so much power. I don't think people are really sleeping on Tank in any way. I think the issue with Tank that people are saying is Tank's a guy, man. People act like he's younger than he is. The guy's been in the game 8 years. He's almost a decade strong. So He's a guy who has his cake and eat it too. Like people treat him like he's some sort of prospect coming up. And but he needs to step it up. He needs to get in there with top competition as well. And Mario Barrios isn't it, man. He's not it. Yes, it's a good fight, but it's not what we wanted to see. That's not who we wanted to see Tank in there with. And nobody's sleeping on Tank's skills. Like everybody's saying that Tank is a very skilled guy with a lot of power who gets guys out of there. He's not like what we saw with Stevenson tonight. Like if somebody's in there with Tank in front of him, standing in front of him, Tank's getting him out of there. Tank's getting him up out of there. So Tank is one of those guys, like his detractors, it seems like, and you have fighters like this, his detractors have more confidence in his ability than his fans. Like his fans are like, oh, he's just going for the money. Low risk, high reward. That's a smart way to do it. It's a smart way to play it. Get your money, get your bag. But his detractors are like, man, the guy's super skilled. We just want to see him in there with somebody. We want to see if the eye test stands up. We want to see if he has a guy skilled in front of him, like a Devin Haney or a Teofimo Lopez. Will he get them out of there? Will he be able to outbox and outskill those guys? Will he look like he has superpowers against those guys? Will he be able to stay disciplined outside of the ring and in the gym to consistently be a great fighter and become a special fighter? Because the ability is there. The skill set is there. Those are the questions we have. No bias, man. No bias here. Devin is getting stopped by the next person he fights with a big right hand. Linares running his bell. And that he did. Linares did ring Devin Haney's bell, which you bring up the comparisons, man. When you look at Haney, is he another Amir Khan type? Like another guy who had all his skill set there. Everything was there. But Amir Khan's chin did not allow him to consistently beat elite competition. Now, Khan did stay in there with guys who can punch. Marcos Maidana, he does have some good wins, but wasn't able to consistently stay at the top level because of the chin. Will Devin Haney's chin and lack of recovery ability, because he didn't show an ability to recover when he got hurt against Linares, will that stop Haney from becoming a great fighter is the question. Hit that like button as y'all come in, man. Like, hit that like button. Bronzer is just dust. Stop it. They're friends. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. Broner Tank would be whack. But I'm telling you, that's what they're trying to do. I'm telling you. That's what they're trying to do. Shout out Gamebred, Pitball Hall of Fame. KL, Royal Media TV, Chris Ray, LaShawn McCall. Let's see what we got here. Mikey versus Josh Taylor at 140 is the money fight. Josh Taylor is going to do, from what I'm hearing, he's doing his mandatory in a couple months. So not a big fight in his next fight. And then they're going for something bigger. So that's why people were saying Teofimo is going to move up and the pay-per-view fight is going to be against Josh Taylor in October. That's not going to be the money fight. That's not going to be the fight next. Josh Taylor is doing his mandatory next. So if Josh Taylor's next fight is going to be, if he fights Teofimo at 140, it's going to be a 2022 fight. All right, I'm telling you, the pay-per-view in October 2nd is Teofimo versus Lomachenko 2. Telling you what that's going to happen. Taylor or Bud at 140. I don't pick anybody against Bud, man. Frustrating to not see Bud Crawford in the ring, man. I see Bud Crawford at other people's fights more than I see Bud Crawford fight. Big Terrence Crawford fan. Big fan of Bud. Great for boxing when he fights, but he's stuck on Top Rank Island. Like, he's not getting the fights at 147. Guys aren't crossing the street. 147 is dumpster juice right now. Such a disappointing division, talent-rich division, that these guys just aren't mixing it up. And it's frustrating because you have arguably the most talented fighter in the world in Bud Crawford just sitting on the shelf right now, not getting the fights. And you see him at other people's fights in the crowd more than you see him at his fighting. We need to get Bud Crawford back in the ring. But Terrence Crawford versus Josh Taylor, I pick Terrence Crawford. I pick Terrence Crawford against anybody. 140, 147. I'd even pick probably Terrence Crawford against pretty much everybody at 154. I think he has that ability. Hit the likes and sub. Yeah. Hit that like button as y'all come in, man. Devin the Cuddle Haney. Somebody was telling me that was calling him Barney because he was hugging so much against Linares in those last 3 rounds. Somebody was calling him Barney. Let's see what we got. The best event was let's see what I got. Talk Spence versus Crawford. Look, man. I'd take Crawford over Spence. I've said that. But we're getting a fight that we want next at 147. We're at least getting that. Spence versus Pacquiao. Spence versus Pacquiao is a fight, man. It gives Spence a big name in the ring, obviously, Manny Pacquiao. And it gives us Manny Pacquiao at 42 and a half years old going for legacy, even more legacy to add to his career. He's trying to climb the historical pound for pound rankings even higher than he already is. So to me, for Manny Pacquiao, it's a win-win because if he loses his fight, okay, 9 out of 10 people expected him to lose his fight against a guy in his prime in Errol Spence, who is one of the top 3 or 4 pound for pound guys in the world. And it gives us Errol Spence. And if Manny Pacquiao wins, imagine that. Imagine that what that does for his legacy. Right? And if Errol Spence wins the fight, it gives him a springboard onto a greater things in his career. Right? Like we saw, even though Mayweather was at the tops of the pound for pound rankings, after he fought De La Hoya, Mayweather's career skyrocketed. Then he became Money Mayweather. When Pacquiao fought De La Hoya, as many legacy fights as Pacquiao had already fought, he had already fought Marquez twice. He fought Morales 3 times. He fought Barrera twice, etc., etc. David Diaz at 135. But even after all that, what turned Manny Pacquiao into a household name was the De La Hoya fight. So Pacquiao is saying, okay, I want to go for legacy, but if Pacquiao loses this fight to Spence, it takes Spence to another level. That's a springboard fight for Errol Spence, right? So good for boxing altogether. But if you're asking me who wins between Crawford and Errol Spence at 147, I just answered it. I take Terrence Crawford against anybody. I just do. So maybe that's the eye test fooling me, though, that I think Terrence Crawford is arguably the most, pound for pound, the most talented fighter in the world, because we haven't seen him in there with his most talented peers in the division because of politics of boxing. But that's just my opinion on it, man. I'd take him over anybody. Let's see what we got. I like Haney, but if Tank gets that chin or Teo, he will get finished. I think Teofimo sends Haney to hell, if I'm being honest. I don't think Haney's chin would hold up to Teofimo's. Boring fight tonight. Yep. Boring fight. Boring fight. Shakur, just lackluster performance. Shout out to David Salas. He's saying Shakur, boring Stevenson. Yeah, man. Trilogy makes so much money for Bob. And I think that's what Bob's hoping for with Teofimo versus Lomachenko. Get that in-house money. He's hoping for Lomachenko maybe to beat Teofimo and get that trilogy money, that in-house trilogy money, and quite possibly get a cash cow on Lomachenko. Let's see, Taylor at 147. I like that. I like Taylor at 147 too. I like him at 147 too. Taylor's a beast, man. He took a good path. He beat my boy Rougarou. Arguably, that was a close fight with Regis Prograis, man. And but Taylor's a beast. He fits in well at 140 or 147. He's gonna mix it in with guys at 147. So let's see what we got. Shout out John Francis. Let's see what we got. Let's see who won. Shakur, the other dude. Shakur won. 120, 107 on all 3 scorecards, I believe. But lackluster performance by Shakur Stevenson. I'm going to continue to say it, man. Just Just frustrating, man. Frustrating that Shakur had this guy right in front of him to finish, and would refuse to step on the gas. When you have a guy flat-footed in front of you, telegraphic punches every single time Nakathila would load up on that right hand, try to throw that straight right. You saw it coming from a mile away, and instead of trying to counter with that left hand and load up on a counter, get this guy out of there, because he was open for check hooks all night. We saw that in the knockdown in the fourth round. He was open for check hooks all night. And instead of doing that, what happened? Every time he would load up, Nakathila would throw that straight right. Shakur would bounce. He would circle out of there. He would back up, get back in his comfortable space, and then rinse and repeat. Throw the jab. Every once in a while, he'd let go of some combinations, and he was very content with going 12. Very content with winning this fight wide on the scorecards and not hurt this guy. And we're in the hurt business, man. We're in the business of getting guys out of there. If you have a guy in front of you to get out of there, man, put on a show. Put on a show. Very forgettable night for Shakur Stevenson. Frustrating, man. Frustrating. I was hoping for some questions to get answered, but instead, what I expected to happen happened. I predicted a wide decision by Shakur Stevenson, even though Vegas had Shakur Stevenson winning this fight within 8.5 rounds. I thought that it would go over and that it would go to decision, and that's what happened. Frustrating. I was hoping that Shakur would surprise me a little bit, get aggressive, sit on punches more, try to get the guy out of there, because we already knew the other things. We already know this guy has supreme skill sets. We already know that it's all there. Great lateral movement, athlete. The only thing different that we really learned tonight about Stevenson is that he's put on some muscle, man. The guy's traps look big tonight, biceps, all that stuff, forearms. So he's put on muscle. He looks a little more, he looks better, like filled out at 130. He looks like a big 130. He looks like he can fill out at 135 too. Like he looks like a guy who eventually could get up to 140. But the lack of power, the lack of killer instinct worries me, especially if he moves up in division, because he doesn't have power right now at 130, 135. If he steps in there with killers like Teofimo, if he steps in there with a killer like Tank Davis, what's he going to do then? Game bred Pitbull Hall of Fame Devin Haney got his ass whooped when him and Devin sparred, and Loma whips him in the second fight. We'll see, man. Like, the thing about the first Lomachenko fight, right? The issue with that was Lomachenko just showed so much respect for Teofimo's power early in the fight, and it wasn't just the power that gave Lomachenko. The thing that gave Lomachenko issues more than anything in that fight was he didn't have a speed. He didn't have elite speed against Teofimo, right? Like, Teofimo was right there with him as far as speed, as far as lateral movement. So every time Lomachenko would do that thing where he tries to step to the side and throw punches against the guy at angles, Teofimo was right there, stopping it in its tracks. All right, so Lomachenko didn't get going until the 6th, 7th round before he finally opened up, right? And by that time, it was too late. So Lomachenko did his thing from rounds 7 to 11 and made it a closer fight on the scorecards. But what Teofimo did that was great, that Stevenson lacked tonight, was he stepped on it late. He said, you know what? I'm closing the show. All right, this is my show. Even though this guy's coming on, I'm closing the show tonight. And that's what Teofimo did in that 12th round. And he said, if this is even close on the scorecards, I'm ending that right now. I'm deading it. And that's what he did. But the thing about the rematch is there are some things Lomachenko can improve on from that first fight. He can start off quicker. All right. He can lead off in round 1 of this fight how he started in round 7 of the first fight. The issue with that is that could play into Teofimo's hands because a more aggressive Lomachenko is a more open Lomachenko to those big shots of Teofimo. All right, so can Teofimo possibly stop Lomachenko in the second fight? And I think I think this second fight will happen in October 2nd on pay-per-view. Let's see what we got. Shakur will be in trouble with Tank or Teo. I believe so too, man. After watching tonight, I still have a lot of questions about Shakur as far as power, killer instinct, and will he be able to open up enough to win rounds against other special elite fighters? Because Valdez opens up. Valdez throws a lot of punches. Hit that like button as y'all come in, by the way, and hit the sub button if you're not subbed. But he's a guy, Valdez, who opens up a lot, so he's not as economical as other guys that Shakur Stevenson has fought. Shakur Stevenson, with his style, with his defensive ability, skill set, does make guys more economical in the ring. You're not going to be able to find Shakur Stevenson like you find other guys in the ring. Right? So Valdez is going to have trouble finding him for a little while maybe, but once he does, man, it's going to be tough for Stevenson against a guy like Valdez. I would pick Valdez all day against Stevenson after watching tonight. I think Prograis is a really good fighter, man, because he was right there with Taylor, and we saw how great Taylor was against Ramirez. All right, so you could argue that Prograis won that fight. All right, so I'm high on Prograis. I think Prograis is a hell of a fighter, not just because I'm from New Orleans. He's a hometown fighter, one of our only really. But I think Prograis has a lot of ability, and he's a guy who people are staying away from at 140 because he's too much risk for not so much reward, because Prograis is not a household name, right? So it's easier to fight Adrien Broner than it is Regis Prograis, right? Broner's name is bigger. All right, more casuals know Broner, and it's an easier fight. It's a much easier fight for a Tank Davis to fight Adrien Broner than it is for a Tank Davis to fight Regis Prograis. Because guess what? I'd pick Regis Prograis against Tank Davis all day. All day. Let's see what we got as far as comments real quick. Let's see what we got. Just like Law was an exciting fight with a guy like Angulo. That's right. I mean, even you can have guys who are boring all of a sudden get in better fights. And then when they have a guy in the ring who they know is ready to go, they go get him. Stevenson had a guy in the ring tonight who was ready to go. He was just out there to go 12 and then, if I land the straight right, I land the straight right. But he was standing right in front of Stevenson all night. Just throwing one punch at a time. And it was the same punch. There was nothing different. He was not a puzzle to figure out. All right, this was a straight up and down guy in Nakathila tonight. A guy who would paw out the jab, more of a defensive mechanism, more to find his range than to land it. He was landing maybe one or two punches per round. And then after he would throw the jab, it was the same time every time. Easy to time. He would load up with that straight right and lean in with it. All right? Leaning straight into Stevenson's punches if he wanted to throw the check hook. Just take half step back and land it. Sit on it. But instead, he just went into, I'm going to coast to get 12 and then get my bag real quick and then get on to the next fight. That's what Stevenson was on tonight. Hated it. Come on, man. Stevenson, get that killer instinct, man. You could have gotten this guy out of there and put on a great performance tonight. Instead, it's a forgettable performance. Prograis gets stopped by Tank within 3. I don't think so, man. Prograis is a big 140-pounder, and Tank is a small 140-pounder. So if Tank doesn't overwhelm you with speed, and if Tank doesn't catch you with those shots you don't see, Prograis is a skilled guy, man. And he's a skilled guy who can punch and bunch. He can use lateral movement as well. Savvy vet. And he's not going to be overwhelmed. Prograis is not going to be overwhelmed. And that's how Tank gets guys. He's not going to be overwhelmed, man. He has T-Rex arms. He does, but look, man, he's a big 140-pounder. He sits in well at the division. He's busting at the seams at 140. Has good strength and conditioning team. Can move up at 147 and do well at that division too. But I'm telling you, man, don't sleep on Prograis, because a lot of people think he beat Josh Taylor in that fight. That was a close fight. And Josh Taylor has all the hardware that matters at 140. Josh Taylor would beat Tank Davis at 140 as well. Am I being a homer? Possibly being a homer with Prograis. But I'm just saying, like, Tank Davis is a small 140-pounder. Small 140-pounder, and Prograis is a big 140-pounder who is well acclimated at the division. So you can't just say a guy's going to move up north to 140 and just dominate the division. I don't think that's a good call. I mean, you have guys at 140 who Tank would have trouble with because of the size. Jose Ramirez. I mean, Tank's small for the division, man, at least right now. I don't agree with this. Don't agree with that. Let's see what D-Styles got accepting this. They know it's boring. They know it hurts sport, but they want to be smug and real because they appreciate the sweet science. Look, man, it's not. Somebody was saying this on Twitter earlier. I think people are misunderstanding the sweet science thing. And sweet science isn't just about hitting and not getting hit, man. It's about mixing it up. It's about finishing guys. It's about knockouts. It's about bruising people. It's a whole cocktail of things. It's not just hit and getting. That's too simple. Hit and not getting hit. That's too simple. It's a cocktail of things. It's a sweet science. So if you have a guy, no, dude, you're not lying. You're not lying. You have a guy in front of you that's ready to go. Get him out of there. Get him out of there. All right, don't just cruise to 12. This guy was easy to figure out. Paw the jab, and then throw the straight right that you can see from a mile away. Get that guy out of there. All right? I don't know. Canelo has T-Rex arms too. Cotto does too. It's about winning. Look, it is about winning, man, but it's about putting on a show as well and putting people on notice that I'm the guy at 130. And that's how you sell tickets as well. That's how you build a name for yourself, and that's how you bring more leverage to yourself as well. If you sit down at a table with a guy, that's how you become the A side. You put on performance after performance after performance where you're getting rid of guys, putting on a great show, you become the A side. All right, so you can sit at the table and demand things. I want this ring size. I want this ounce glove. I want to fight here instead of there. That's how you become the A side, not just cruising the 12-round decisions. Maybe people are on this Money Mayweather thing, but you got to remember Floyd was a killer in the lower weight classes. When he was Pretty Boy Floyd, he wasn't just Pretty Boy. Pretty Boy Floyd was a killer. A killer. All right? Don't forget that. So I wouldn't just use this blueprint. Let's just get the bag and go 12 and then get on to the next thing, man. Look, you destroy guys in the ring, you get to that A side a lot quicker. Shakur is a glorified Tevin Farmer. We'll find out, man. Shakur can box his ass off, but can't fight. He can box, man. He can box. You're right about that. Special skill, great lateral movement. It's all there for him, boxing ability, but I just worry about, can he sit on punches and get guys out of there? What happens if guys get to his chin? What happens if it's the 10th round, 9th, 10th round, and it's a close fight? All right, what happens then? Can he dig deep and get rounds where he has to be more active in the ring? Not where he can just pot shot guys, use lateral movement, play defense, and cruise to get rounds and cruise to victories. What happens when he's in there with another elite guy and he has to win rounds late on activity? He has to land the flashier punches, when he has to sit on punches, when he has to stick his chin out there to land counters. when he has to throw more combination punches to get the judge's decision? What happens in those fights? When he fights Oscar Valdez, I'm just telling you, man, based off of what I saw tonight, I worry if Stevenson can beat an Oscar Valdez. I would pick Oscar Valdez over Shakur Stevenson every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Mayweather at 130 finishes that dude in 4 rounds. I give it a round and a half. I don't give him 4 rounds. Nakathila does not last 4 rounds with I think you're being generous, D-Style. I think he lasts maybe 4.5. I give him 4.5 minutes. 4.5 minutes with Floyd. Floyd at 130 absolutely destroys Nakathila. It wouldn't even be funny. Nakathila wouldn't even have an opportunity to try to throw the right hand against Floyd. You think Floyd versus Gotti was ugly. Goodness gracious. Floyd versus Nakathila would be a bloodbath. That would be world star worthy right there. Shakur is like Devin, no killer instinct. I actually think Devin has more ability as far as killer instinct and sitting on punches. Like watching Devin versus Linares, I felt like Devin sat on punches, especially early in the fight, to get Linares' attention. And Devin thought that Linares was going to be aggressive early in the fight because he heard Linares say that. So what did Devin do? Devin was aggressive early in the fight to keep Linares on his heels and not allow Linares to get timing, to get in the groove, right? And that was a smart thing to do on Devin's part. Devin just faded late. All right, so I actually give Devin more credit as far as being a guy with more killer instinct than sitting on punches. I don't know. I would take Devin over Shakur Stevenson at 135 as well, especially Devin being naturally bigger at this point. Shakur has the curse of the gifted. And look, man, that's a fair point because when you win a bronze medal in the Olympics, when you're built up to be a certain thing, it was the same thing with Lomachenko. Like Lomachenko is getting a lot of hype. So once Lomachenko wins so many fights in a row and then he loses to Teofimo, it's the curse of the gifted. Everybody jumps on a let's bash Lomachenko bus. So we just expect more from younger, talented fighters, right? Gifted fighters, special fighters. And when we see Stevenson fight, we see all the ability that he has. So we expect more from him in a fight like tonight. Like if I'm a level-headed boxing fan, so if Shakur Stevenson loses to Oscar Valdez, like if Stevenson fought Valdez tonight and lost, I wouldn't be on here saying, "Oh, Stevenson exposed," like you saw what people saying about Lomachenko after the Teofimo loss. I wouldn't be on here saying, "Oh, Shakur Stevenson was exposed," etc., etc., etc. I would say he just got beat by another great fighter. He got beat by a special fighter. The thing that's tough about tonight is we all saw it, man. Whether we want to admit it or not, we saw Stevenson not step on the gas and not get this guy out of there when he should have. We saw a lackluster performance. We saw a forgettable performance. And that's what's frustrating because we expected more from Stevenson tonight. We expected more from the guy headlining ESPN tonight, which is Shakur. This was Shakur Stevenson's night. And when you had people's attention, man, you put on a show when you have a guy in front of you he's like a game dog, right? He's like a dog that they feed to the pit bulls, like just to train them. And that's what it was tonight. It was a sparring session, but it shouldn't have been that. It should have been a knockout instead of a sparring session. Who gives Canelo the toughest fight? Benavidez. Benavidez has the toughest style for Canelo at 168. I'm convinced of it. All right, but he doesn't have the belt, so he's not in line right now. It's going to be Caleb Plant, and I think Caleb Plant's going to be a tougher fight for Canelo than Billy Joe Saunders. A lot of people were saying Billy Joe Saunders was the toughest fight for Canelo at 168 due to the boxing ability and the lateral movement, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason that was the wrong call is because not only the lack of power But people were comparing Billy Joe Saunders' fight to the Trout and the Lara fights and the Mayweather fights earlier on in Canelo's career. There's two issues with that. Number one, we're in higher weight class. Well, number one, we're years later, so Canelo has developed into a better fighter. I don't think that's deniable at this point. He's developed into Canelo's a different beast at 168 than he was at 140, at 154. Different beast, right? So we got the time issue. He's developed into a better fighter. Second, when you have bigger guys, you have naturally slower guys. So although Billy Joe Saunders uses lateral movement like Lara, like Trout, like Mayweather, he's not naturally as fast as those guys. And he's taller, so it's easier to get to his body than it was to get to Floyd's body, to Lara's body, to Trout's body. Right? So he's just naturally bigger, so he's not naturally as quick as those guys were, even though he has a similar style. Number three, he's not a counterpuncher like those guys were. He's not a counterpuncher. So Billy Joe Saunders wasn't countering Canelo in the fight, so Canelo could walk him down a little easier, especially as the fight went on. Right? So I think that Canelo, for me, is Benavidez. That's going to give him the most issues. But Caleb Plant presents a tougher fight for Canelo than Billy Joe Saunders did because he's more active in the ring. He's going to try to throw combinations. He can lead. He can do a lot of things in there, man. Caleb Plant can, but I just think that Canelo's going to be too much for him. And Canelo's going to become undisputed if that fight does happen in September, which it should. Too much money on the table, too much on the line. And after that, if Canelo stays at 168, which I hope he does, Benavidez presents the biggest problem. Now, some people are saying Andrade. I'm not as high on Andrade as a lot of people, but to me, if Andrade wants that fight so bad, move up to 168 and become a mandatory. Just move up to 168, fight a fight at 168 and become a mandatory. You have guys like Andrade and Charlo calling out Canelo and saying that Canelo's ducking them from a division south. How are you going to duck a guy not in your division? So it's fair to say, okay, Andrade would give Canelo stylistic issues. It's a fair comment that he would give Canelo a tough fight. Fair comment, but Andrade needs to move up. You want that fight, move up. And I like this a lot. Bivol versus Canelo is the best fight. If Canelo moves up to 175, it's a much different ballgame at that point. Is he biting off more than he could chew? I've said for a while, if Canelo loses right now, I think it's going to be to a guy at 175. At the end of the day, I think Canelo cleans out 168 for however long he stays there. I don't think anybody at 168 is going to beat him. If he loses, it's going to be to a guy at light heavy. I completely agree with this. And Bivol can do it. Those guys are big, man. Those guys are big. Linares, way better than this dude. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Linares is. This dude, man. Shakur should have got Shakur versus Linares at 135. How's it go? That's an interesting comment. What do y'all think about that? Shakur versus Linares at 135. That's a tough one. That's tougher than you think. After watching the Devin Haney fight, especially those last couple rounds. I don't know, man. That's a close fight. Linares, if Stevenson steps up to 135, I don't think he has the power to keep Linares honest. So I think he's not going to be as aggressive as Haney was early in the fight. That's a close fight. Can Linares get to Shakur Stevenson's chin? Shakur is not going to be able to just outbox Linares all night. Linares is a master boxer in his own right. So Canelo smokes anybody pound for pound, number one. But Linares versus Stevenson at 135 is a good fight, man. That's a close fight. And we got Bivol will knock out Canelo. He's too big. Bivol's a big dude, man. I don't think Canelo should step up to 175 quite yet. I think he should stay at 168. I mean, he's in the groove. That's a perfect weight class for him right now. He's in the groove at 168. Let these guys from 160 naturally move up to 168. Guys like Andre, guys like Charlo come to him after he fights guys like Benavidez. Let these guys move up and then stay at 168 as long as you can and then move to 75. Maybe let these guys at 75 age a little longer. All right? So it's obvious at this stage Canelo doesn't want to fight Andre. I don't know, man. Andre acts like he's ducked, but Andre's made a lot of bad business decisions to keep himself out of big fights. And not only that, he's not a very entertaining fighter to be able to be demanding things. So that's why I say move up to 168 and become his mandatory and get the fight that way. Shakur boxes circles around Linares. I'm not so sure about that, man. Not so sure. Linares has boxed. He can set up. That's a guy who can set up power punches. All right? He can box. Now he has flaws. Cuts easy. All right? Lack of a chin. Been knocked out, 5 times? But is Shakur Stevenson a guy who can exploit those things? I don't know. I don't think so. Shakur has no power, but nobody beats him. That's a fair take. Sometimes you have guys with a lack of power who can beat a lot of elite opposition, but I just think that in order to be the top of the top, you have to have some type of power. You have to have some type of stopping ability. You have to be able to have something that can turn a fight if it's not going your way, right? Because you're not going to have the style to beat every elite opposition. So when things aren't going your way, you have to have something that can turn a fight. And I don't know if Stevenson has that based off of what I've seen up to this point. I was not impressed by tonight. Shakur versus Haney, who you got? I got Haney. I would have Haney in that fight. I'd take Haney over Shakur. I just would. Because I have more confidence in Haney sitting on punches, being more aggressive, putting together combinations, and winning rounds, especially early in the fight. And I don't have confidence in Shakur being able to have a game changer punch late in the fight like Linares did against Haney. Just my opinion. So good boxing, you actually know your stuff and you're not biased. That's what I try to do, Mir, man. I try to be unbiased and just give my boxing take. Shakur, to me, has it, but wants people to think that we are going to see in his next fight. I don't know who we're going to see Shakur in there with, to be honest. I hope it's Valdez versus Stevenson. I'd much rather see Valdez, Stevenson next than Valdez versus the guy they're talking about. And I'd rather see that than Stevenson Herring or Valdez Herring because I like Herring. Savvy vet, brings a lot of good things to the table. He's earned his way to where he is. And I'm happy for him. And I hope he gets a nice payday in his next fight. He's earned it. All that being said, I think guys like Valdez and Stevenson are a level ahead of him, a level above him. So that's just where I'm at with him. And that's where I'm at with 130. Not much answer with Stevenson tonight, unfortunately. Stevenson, what I thought about him before this fight is pretty much what I thought about him, think about him after this. And that's disappointing. Just a disappointing, lackluster night from Stevenson. And I'm going to close it off with that, man. Look, I hope y'all had a great night despite the lackluster performance. Hit that sub button if you're not subbed. Sub to my boys, D-Style Boxing as well, G-Funky Boxing as well. And I appreciate y'all tuning in tonight. We will be on the podcast Monday market, man. Monday at 8 Central. Me and D-Style will be right here talking more of this. All right? And fresh boxing content every day on this channel. I'll drop something again tomorrow. So y'all sub, hit the alerts. And if you're on Twitter, I'm CalixBoxing2 on Twitter. And if you're on Instagram, I'm CalixBoxing 2.0. So make sure to check me out there as well. Always engaging with people as far as boxing, man. I love this sport, and I try to keep it unbiased, and I try to keep it boxing all the time for the hardcore boxing fans. So appreciate y'all, man. One love. God bless. God bless. God bless. Peace.